Nerdcast assemble!
Stay dandy, baby.
Half-demon princesses, time-traveling, and dream-eating butterflies. That's the name of the game in the latest episode of Yashahime. Yes, the story continues, and it's starting to get really freaking exciting. There's still a lot of mystery about the entire series, like the whole Rainbow Pearls aspect, and the fact that they've now introduced a dream and memory-eating butterfly, which is totally affecting Setsuna, the long-lost sister of Towa, in this episode. But this one wastes no time in getting to all of the exciting action, so let's go ahead and dive right in. But first, before we begin, let me give a shameless plug-in to a Patreon-supported review that I just completed. I just did a review of the very first season of Strike Witches. I worked really hard on this review, so please, guys, make sure to check it out, leave a comment, a like, share it with your friends, all that stuff. Link for that video in the description box below. Let's go ahead with more Yashahime. So picking up from the end of the last episode, the massive centipede demon, Maroha and Setsuna, had just been thrown through this rainbow tunnel portal, which has thrown them directly into the time period where Towa is currently living, and a massive fight ensues. Now, at the end of the last episode, Towa was using her treasured sword, which ended up breaking against the three-eyed centipede woman, when suddenly, out of pure and raw anger, she is able to sort of utilize a brand new weapon directly from the actual hilt of this sword, where essentially she uses blade demon energy. At least that's what Maroha actually calls it. And basically, she ends up creating like a giant demon lightsaber, which she's able to use to pierce directly through the centipede woman. And then she suddenly goes into a fit of rage, tries to attack Towa's family, when suddenly Setsuna decides to dive in and finish off this creature with one swift attack to the head. And that's when we finally get the reunion between the two sisters, which is not the lovey-dovey reunion that you were probably going to expect. And a lot of that is owed to the fact that Setsuna doesn't seem to have any memories of her sister, nor of her relationship to her father, the great Sesshomaru. And I'm really glad that they finally brought him up in this episode, because that was bugging me so much about the last episode of the series, is that they're just not talking about the parents of these characters, and the fact that they're technically all related to one another. You'd think they already know who everyone is, but no, there's still a little bit of mystery in this series, and we get to learn at the very end that apparently Setsuna's dreams and memories have been devoured by this butterfly, which is known as the dream butterfly. I'm not sure what it is, where it came from, why it's a part of the series. They just decided to throw it in here. And it's very tragic for her character. Not only was Setsuna separated from her sister and her family, but now she has no memories of either of them, and essentially she has become a lone wolf. In fact, they even dive into her backstory a little bit here, where we get to see that eventually she met Lady Kaede when she was thrown into this rite of passage, which is basically the rite of courage and cowardice. It's very similar to what happens when a older lion throws its cubs into a pit, and they have to crawl their way up to the top to prove themselves worthy. And basically, that's possibly what Sesshomaru has actually done here with his two twin daughters. He basically threw them in the wild and was like, hey, if you want to hang with Pops, you gotta get stronger. That's just the way that it's gonna be. And honestly, that is kind of in character for Sesshomaru. It's the type of thing that he would probably do. And of course, he's not a big fan of weaklings at all, so he has to make sure that his daughters are gonna end up being just as badass as he is. But still, there's something else going on here that we still don't know anything about. But it is really important to note that not everyone in the series has completely lost their memories. It mostly seems to be the character of Setsuna. And when they do bring up Sesshomaru in this episode, the implication, of course, is that even Towa is kind of unsure about really what's going on here. But Maroha seems to know everything that's really like taking place here, especially with the fact that they are related to Sesshomaru. So going back to the present, Setsuna has a big issue with Towa, and a lot of that just has to do with the fact that Setsuna has a problem with, like, everyone. She's always picking fights. She always looks down on everyone. Basically, she is the next generation female Sesshomaru, and she decides to actually try and do battle with her sister, who doesn't want to do that. She just wants to hug and see her sister again, and everything's going to be happy. But suddenly, before this battle can go any further, this weird root demon appears, which is known as a Hitokan, which basically is like a parasitic demon which roots itself into the brains of people and takes over their bodies, and initially taking over Towa, which leads to a pretty exciting exciting battle between the two characters of Setsuna and Towa, it does get interrupted by Miroha, and we actually get to see more of what her sword can potentially do, which I think is awesome. In the last episode, you got to see that she had this like weird dragon that was on it, and she seems to utilize some sort of weird dragon-like energy attack, which actually interrupts both of their battles, and it looks really awesome. I love the way that they're slowly sort of building up to more of what these girls are actually going to be possible of doing, but still, it looked really awesome. But suddenly the weird root demon decides, enough with Towa. She's going to jump into her, half-sister Mei and decides to take her over, which is not a very good idea because basically this creature is doing it out of an act of desperation here. And Towa tries to appeal to her senses by hugging onto her sister. That doesn't really do anything when suddenly Setsuna reveals one of her special abilities, which is this, like, moth ability where she summons all of these moths, which puts everyone to sleep. And this allows her to sort of use this, like, weird demon slayer type magic stuff to actually like get this root out of Mei and also kill it all at the same time. So that's all well and good, everything's fine, but then we go back to the past and we start to learn a little bit more about what's really going on here. You have Kohaku and Hisui who are hanging out with Kaede, and they're learning a little bit more about the history of these two girls and how it could be potentially connected to the current storyline of the Tree of Ages, which is another name for the sacred tree in the series. And the reason it actually has this name is because it's connected to the Bone Eater's Well, where apparently all of the wood that's like around the base of that well was actually created from the Tree of Ages. Thus, this tree is some sort of weird time-traveling type of object, and now that it's been connected to Roothead, that ancient demon from a couple of years ago, it's basically sort of like taken over, and it has the ability to use time travel, and it can send things to the future, and maybe even things back from the future to the past. Hence why all of those girls were suddenly sent flying forward through that weird rainbow tunnel. Again, I don't know how any of this is going to be connected to the whole rainbow pearl thing, or even this brand new dream butterfly thing, but it's all really interesting to say the least. The episode does actually end where we get to see Sota and his family. We get to see his wife for the first time, Moe, who's super adorable, by the way, and we also get to see that basically Mei is super excited because now she has 3 freaking sisters. Freaking Miroha, Setsuna, Towa, all under one roof, and Towa is completely just knocked out from all of the battle, and she gets to overhear this conversation between Miroha and Setsuna, learning a little bit more about the dream butterfly, how it's eaten all of her dreams, but is also not allowing her to ever sleep, which is a really disturbing thought. So she's lost all sense of her memories, she can never relax or get any sort of rest, and now she's been suddenly thrust into this future where everything's confusing and strange, and the only thing she can think to do is to take her naginata and shove it through someone's face. Basically, Setsuna is probably really pissed off right now, and she's even more confused now that there's this mysterious girl who's suddenly been thrown into her life who's claiming to actually be her sister. And interestingly enough, Miroha ends up being a lot of the voice of reason in this episode. While she does take a lot of her personality from Inuyasha, she's significantly more intelligent in the way that she actually goes about things. It's also really cool just to see her interacting with Sota and everything, because they even realize that this is probably Kagome's daughter, and it's even more interesting because, you know, obviously when Kagome decided to go to the past and live with Inuyasha and have a family and everything, the trade-off is that she potentially could never return to the future to interact with her other family members, which is kind of sad and a really important thing to actually remember. But now that they're getting to interact with all these different family members and everything, it's adding a very interesting dynamic to the entire show, which I think is just fan-freaking-tastic. Not to mention, it just leads to a lot of really funny moments, like the fact that these girls are from the past and they're not used to modern amenities. Just watching Miroha suddenly walk out into Sota's living room completely butt-ass naked, much to his surprise, was definitely very funny. She takes it all in stride, though, and that overall was sort of the tone of the series, which can jump from being kind of action-packed and downright creepy at times with the Centipede Lady to little funny moments like this, which are definitely, I think, one of the best things about Inuyasha, its ability to not take things entirely too seriously and to have fun with its characters and to see them grow. But still, there is so much more mystery for where the rest of the show is going to go from here. So, what's the rundown on this episode of Yashahime? I loved this episode too. Probably my favorite episode of the series thus far. We got some answers, but we also got way more questions about things that are actually going on in this world. But it gave me what I've been really wanting to see so far, which is all three of the characters together and interacting. But still, there's clearly a lot of tension between them. And the implication is, at least from the first episode of the series, eventually they are going to make their way back to the past and they're going to start actually working as a team. Of course, there's going to be some bumps in the road along the way, but I can't wait to see, when the sisters are fully going to be reunited with one another. I think that's going to be a very important moment. As for getting to learn just a little bit more about how Sesshomaru basically just threw them into the frickin' demon wild, that's interesting. A lot of people were having the theory that all of these girls were going to be losing their memories. They wouldn't know who their parents were, and this might be related to the whole Rainbow Pearl aspect, where possibly I've heard a lot of theories and commenters saying that maybe all these characters were going to be sealed away in these mysterious objects, and I still think that that is kind of potential for the rest of the series, and who knows where it's really going to go from here. I mean, the way that Kohaku and Kaede actually talk about Kagome and Inuyasha in this episode implies that they are still around. It's just they're not really talking about them all quite yet. And they make Setsuna out to be this incredibly mysterious character, and it just brings up so many more questions. I mean, I just figured the fact that, Sesshomaru had daughters, that he was going to interact maybe with Kagome and Inuyasha just a little bit more. But the fact of the matter is, even with time, the character has not changed all that much. He's still very much incredibly mysterious, hard to read, and kind of a lone wolf kind of character. Even with the fact that he has brand new family members to interact with, he doesn't really care. Sesshomaru is going to do his own thing, and that's just the way that Sesshomaru do. So I'm okay with that. I'd still want to see more of his character return and to get some more proper answers to see where this is all going to be heading. But for what they're giving us right now, I think it's really good. And I love that they're keeping it kind of mysterious. It's got me excited to see what each new episode is eventually going to reveal. And my guess is the current major arc of the story is going to involve finding this dream butterfly, destroying it, so that Setsuna can have her memories returned to her. And then they'll find a way to actually return back to the past. I'm sure this is going to involve the mysterious rainbow pearls, which are connected to time travel and the tree itself. And I do like the aspect of the actual sacred tree, the Tree of Ages, becoming something of an antagonistic force in this series, because again, in the past it didn't really have that feel to it. It was an important object for the lore of Inuyasha, but now it's taking center stage yet again and in a completely different light, and I really do love that. Production value wise, another pretty decent looking episode with some solid action moments attached to it and some really great character designs and fantastic expressions from all of them. Again, feeling familiar and new all at the same time. Really, that's the best way to describe Yashahime, and I love watching it every single week. And I loved this episode, which is why I'm going to give it a 5 out of 5, and you guys definitely need to check it out. But you heard my thoughts about the episode. I want to hear yours. Make sure to sound off in the comment section below and tell me what you thought about the latest episode of Yashahime. Were you excited to see the three characters finally come together? Any theories about the rainbow pearls, the mysterious dream butterfly, the Tree of Ages? What do you hope to see from the future of the series? The return of classic characters like Sesshomaru, Inuyasha, and Kagome? Sound off in the comment section below. Let's talk about that and this episode and all the other exciting stuff. So thank you guys so much for watching this review. Like I said at the very beginning of the review, please check out my latest Patreon review on Strike Witches. I worked really hard on that, and I would really love if you guys would take the time, check that out, share it with your friends, maybe even give it a comment or a like. That's all I'm going to say about it now. Otherwise, if you like this video, give it a thumbs up. Helps out these videos a lot, ensures more people can see my content. I also want to thank all of my patrons. You guys are amazing, not only watching my videos every single week, but you're donating every single month, and I cannot thank you enough for that. Remember, first-time donators, you make a first-time donation, I'm going to review an anime series of your choice. Yes, you can make that happen, and you can become a producer for the Ace Guru channel. Yes, I'd love to add your name to this list of super awesome people who support this channel every single day. So thank you guys so much for watching this review. I'll see you all next time. And as always, stay down there, baby.